trace. We put this right at the front of the talk because it's so super important. We have to respect what's out there or it's not going to be out there for us for very long. So I'm going to have Turtle take over on this one.
From my perspective, we all know leave no trace. The first thing we think of is pack our rubbish out. But there's actually a lot more principles to it than that. It's from the group called Leave No Trace Australia, Proprietary Limited, and it's a whole guide on bushwalking. They have 7 sort of broader key principles, and under each one there's like about 10 or 12 points. So,
has anyone actually undertaken the training? There's actually a training you can do, like an official training, and then there's one that you can become a teacher to train other trainers, and it's a whole system that I've recently discovered. So, no, okay.
Yeah, I haven't either. So one of the big things I think for a lot of people with plan ahead and prepare for me is scheduling your trip for off-peak time. So I'm just going to talk about a few things. I think that's a really good one, because I think if we're all on the trail at the exact same time, we're going to have a lot more impact. So trying to do maybe some of those shoulder season periods, if you can, and you're not like a primary school teacher, just to spread it out. I think that's a really good one, because when you have lots of people together, the chances are your camps will overflow, the water supplies will get thrashed. A lot of people walking along the trail at the same time, if there's a bit of water on it and people start walking around it, that's when we're going to start having the biggest impact. So having a bit of a think about that. Obviously weather windows come into that. And just having enough adequate gear and being prepared to know the conditions as well, so that you're not going out in crazy weather that's inappropriate, where you're going to then need to start cutting down wood to build a fire because it's snowing. But yeah, the plan ahead and prepare is quite an interesting one that I hadn't thought about for me before. The travel and camp on durable surfaces is pretty cool. Like, I don't know if anyone's done the Australian Alpine Walking Trail, but that's in alpine environments, and also you'll see it on the Bimman track where, you know, if we all walk and spread out across these fragile environments, just what our footsteps are doing is actually quite cumulative. So it's thinking ahead and you know, where are you camping, where are you walking, what are you doing in terms of what the impact is on the environment that we're on. So on the Australian Alpine Walking Trail, there's sections which aren't actually marked and there isn't actually a track, and you've got a nav, and what they want you to do is, if you're in a group of 4, don't walk behind each other. Actually spread out so you minimise your impact, because the environment's that fragile. And I don't know if anyone's been up on Mount Cook lately, and Sullivan Rocks and those beautiful granite boulders and granite outcrops, and you just see how much impact we're having now, just by how many people just aren't staying on that track and are spreading out to look at things. And just in the last sort of 15 years that I've been going out there, it's a noticeable difference. So yeah.
Just check, you said that the Alpine track, they want you to spread out.
Yeah, they don't even have a track as an extreme one.
Gotcha. But this one, we do you saying stay on the track,
yeah,
where there's an official track.
Yeah. So most of the time where there's an official track, it's really important we stay on it. Because yes, we might cut down over time and weather it, but they can come in and do rehab. But the more we spread out, so like for instance, if there's rain and there's mud on the track, you know, walk through the mud. Yep. Because if every single person behind you also avoids that mud and avoids that water, it's just, you see some areas that the track just keeps getting wider and wider and the plants don't have a chance.
Just on that, with respect to the bib, south coast, the sand, it's like the Alpine, walk wide, because you will make a trench if you just keep walking down that one central bit. Walk wide. Don't worry about crushing plants in the first 2 feet from the trail, because when they go and do maintenance, they're slashing about 2 metres wide anyway.
And those dune plants recover very quickly.
There's nothing worse than the trench, because that's where the snakes hide.
Oh yes. They wait for you.
Yes, especially in spring. So that's the other thing, is reading up on each trail before you go, because the leave no trace principle for that section of trail will vary depending on the environment that you're in.
And it changes too. So if you've been on the same trail before, you want to check their website before you head out there. I know with respect to the Pacific Crest Trail, there's now sections where you're not allowed a stove at all. So you need to make sure that you know this information before you're heading out onto the trails. And flattening ground for campsites is a big one. So using established campgrounds as much as possible. Because if everyone just starts going, oh, well, I don't want to camp where everyone else is, I want my secluded private space. And everyone does that, and it gets a more popular trail, it's going to cause a problem. So like, say for instance on the bib track, there's the huts, and then there's tent site areas, and if we can stick to them, that's great. And places like the PCT, it's a bit of a different situation, because
they hike certain distances per day and it's really variable, and they don't have established campsites every 8 to 22 k's. So necessarily. But anyway, on the big track and other places, I like the principle of using the established campgrounds just to minimise my own impact. Dispose of waste properly. Okay, so it's not just the rubbish you're carrying. I like to think of this one, dispose of your waste properly. Think about before you go out, minimising the amount of waste you're taking out with you as a first point, so then you've got less to carry out. But a big one's toilet paper. So in terms of toilet paper on the bib track, we're really lucky. We have, and on Cape to Cape as well, we have long drop toilets. It's fantastic. It means that at the most, you know, we've got a day where we've got to carry our toilet paper, get to the next toilet, dump it. But in the US and in other areas, you could have like 5 days of, if you're in a mountain area, you could have 5 or 6 days where you're carrying your toilet paper out. And it really is really important that we do it, especially as hiking's taking off in the world at a really big rate.
Nothing worse than setting up your tent and putting in the stake to find out that there's a nice bit of toilet paper right there. So it's like, great, what am I sleeping on?
Yeah.
This is good. So.
And for me on this one, I don't know whether I should talk about it, where I'll talk about it, but wilderness wash, soap. I've had heaps of people say to me in the past, oh, wilderness wash, it's biodegradable, it's great. And I'm like, it's still full of nutrients. And when you're in an environment like Southwest WA or mountainous environments which are nutrient depleted, any extra nutrients adding to the system could disrupt the system. So from my perspective, just go out there and smell. Like, you know, yes, important hygiene, which Beck will come to later, don't neglect important hygiene things, but at the same time, needing to be clean, think about what the impact is on the environment, and always, if you ever need to go to the toilet or you need to clean yourself, trying to do it at least 100 metres, I think 100 metres from water sources. But I would strongly encourage everyone to minimise any use of nutrients and detergents and body wash where possible. Leave what you find. I think a good example of this is, like we all know, just try not to take shells off a beach. Like that's something that we've all been taught. But I think another really interesting one is leave cans that have been established for navigation. Don't necessarily start adding them or making your own. There's a track maintenance crew that's often set that up. I think that's a quite interesting one that I hadn't thought of myself. So often people will build these rock cans, and if you start fiddling around, anyone who's done the Ridge Walk down in the southwest, down the south coast, it's a nightmare because everyone just keeps creating these cans. You start following them and then you're at the top of a cliff and you're like, well, if you just stick to what's already there, from my perspective, is a good one.
I'll just add to that, on the CDT, they've got these beautiful, ancient, that's the wrong word, but really old cans that have been established through some of the lava fields, and then people have been adding to the top of them, so they're now no longer a historic artefact. They're something that's been basically destroyed by people going, I want my stone on top. So yeah, there's no need to add.
And you only know this sort of stuff by doing the research beforehand.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In some places there is signage, so you know, pay attention to the little signs as you see them going through. I know it's annoying to stop and read for 2 minutes, but it might, you know, be important information. So.
And 2 more things locally: dieback, cleaning your shoes, huge one for us, and the other one is Aboriginal art. I'd say a lot of the time, if you come across it, if it's known on the track, sometimes you might need to request permission to access it. Sometimes you won't be allowed there because it's men's business area or women's. But the other thing is, don't publicise it. Be careful about taking pictures of yourself with it. A lot of cultures it's not appropriate. I'd just say just be very careful around Aboriginal sites and read up on them before you get there.
Has anyone done Uluru, been around there? There's a whole bunch of sections there where you're not allowed to be taking photos, and they're pretty well signposted, but that's a good example of that it's information that is sacred to them, and they don't want it shared. So
minimising campfire, always make sure you put it out.
Otherwise, what happens out here? Actually, I don't know how that started, this big fire today, but prime example.
Yep, and always be around to make sure you put it out properly when you go to bed. Respect wildlife, don't take any, don't interfere with them when you see them, don't go, oh my god, I want a selfie with you and pick you up. And just general, being considerate. That's actually got some great stuff in there about just not being a pain in the ass so that people still want to keep allowing us to keep using the trails. And I'll leave it at that.
Yep.
Because
I'll just add one little thing to the end of that is don't be afraid to be that person that calls somebody on their crappy behaviour. I know it's awkward and I'm really bad at confrontation in any form, but you know, hey, you dropped your thing, even though you know they did it deliberately, or you know, pick some stuff up if you've got extra space in your pack if you see it. That's really helpful. So, all right.